Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to Stately Von Manor, where Roger and I have returned for my TBR for February. I actually have a monthly TBR this month because there's a bunch of stuff I have to read as it turns out in February. And unfortunately, February is like the shortest month of all. I think it's only like 20 days or something. Is it how many days is I don't remember. It's not very long though, February. I'll have to look at a calendar. It used to be longer. It used to be 31 days long, but then Roger and I went back in time in his time machine, and due to some unforeseen time travel shenanigans, when we got back, the month was shorter. I don't know how that happened, but it did. You know, you got to watch out when you travel into time. Anything can happen. Anyway, turns out there's a bunch of stuff I need to read in February. We'll see how it goes. I probably won't read it all because, that's how it always goes in my life. This month, January, of course, is Ambuary over here at my channel because I'm reading the Great Book of Amber, the Complete Amber Chronicles 1 through 10. My plan was to read the entire Amber Chronicles in January. That's not going to happen because January has been a disaster. So I'm not going to read the entire Chronicles. I'm on the 6th book, actually. I read the first 5 books, which are the Corwin cycle of books. And those are awesome. And now I'm reading the Merlin cycle, which is the second 5 books. I'm almost finished with Trumps of Doom. That's the title of the first book in the Merlin cycle, Trumps of Doom. And it's pretty good. I was told that the second cycle of books was not going to be as good as the first cycle of books. And that could well be true because I'm only on the first book. But the first book is pretty good. So we'll see how it goes. So anyway, the Great Book of Amber. I am not going to be able to finish this month. It's just not going to happen. And so what I'm probably going to have to do is spread out the Merlin cycle to like 1 or 2 books a month. So I will be reading at some point in February. What's the next book? Blood of Amber. Blood of Amber is the next book in the Amber Chronicles. So we'll see how the Merlin cycle goes. Like I said, the first book has been pretty good. So we'll see. Great Book of Amber. It's been awesome. I've loved reading it. I just would have liked to read more of it. Oh well, stupid real world and stupid real life. Always getting in the way. So, like I said, it turns out I actually have a TBR, more or less, for February. And one of them is going to be Blood of Amber at some point. But I'm also doing a read-along with Vin from his fabulous channel. Vin's channel is Revenant Reads. You probably know Revenant Reads. It's a fantastic booktube channel. And he and some others were all reading in February The King in Yellow. The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers. Now, my edition is the Dover edition, which doesn't just have The King in Yellow. It has The King in Yellow and other horror stories. So it has a bunch of horror stories by Chambers, including the horror stories from The King in Yellow. And it's not about a bunch of crazy cultists who get together and pee on a pile of books. It does look like that from the cover, but that's not really what it's about. It's about all kinds of other horrific things. And so it's been a while since I've read these stories, and I don't think I've ever read all of the stories that are in this volume. This volume has quite a few. Yeah. So the first few stories are from The King in Yellow, and the rest of the stories are from other places. So this is what I'm reading for the read-along. I'll probably read this. I'll probably start this as soon as I'm finished with the book I'm reading now, Trumps of Doom, to get a head start on it. But yeah, The King in Yellow. This is going to be what I read first in February for that read-along. And that'll be fun. That'll be fun. So I have to read this, and I've been wanting to read this, actually. So The King in Yellow. It's very strange and terrifying. So there you go. And here's a very exciting thing. Roger's Cheap Old Book Club returns in February. Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, the cheapest book club around. Everything in Roger's Cheap Old Book Club is available for free on Project Gutenberg because they're all books that are in the public domain. You know, that's why they're cheap and old. And if you want to get a paper copy of any of the books in Roger's Cheapo Book Club, you can. But the book for February is this one. This is Of One Blood, or The Hidden Self by Pauline Hopkins. It's an uncanny tale of identity, race, and spirituality by groundbreaking Black author Pauline Hopkins. And I've never read this book, so this will be the first time that I've read it. Roger chose it for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club. It's not particularly long. And like I said, it's available for free. It's available for free. And I looked it up, and there's even an Audible version of it if you like listening to your books as opposed to reading them. So this will be the second thing I read in February, Of One Blood, you know. And then I'll probably read Blood of Amber, the next Amber book. But there's another thing that I'm taking part in, which is the Winter of Windom. The Winter of Windom, which is a reading event created by Books, Songs, and Other Magic, that fantastic channel. Gareth over there at Books, Songs, and Other Magic came up with this reading event where every month in winter you read a book by John Windom. And I didn't read one this month because, you know, I've been reading Amber. But so I got to catch up. And so I'm going to be reading The Infinite Moment by John Windom. And this is a collection of stories, 6 tales of time travel and parallel worlds. So that's cool. 6 tales of time travel and parallel worlds. Strange tales of men and women caught in the dimensions of time. Sounds like some of Roger's experiences with his time machine. Maybe Roger will be in this book, The Infinite Moment by John Windom. It looks really cool. So, yeah, The Winter of Windom, I'm going to continue with that. And maybe in March I'll read 2 Windom books to catch up. I don't know. But there's also this other thing going on, which is a reading event I was excited about, but it turns out I don't have time to really take part, and that is Holmes is Where the Heart Is, I believe, which is a reading event that Mystery and Mayhem are doing. Great channel, Mystery and Mayhem. Who else is doing it? I think Mark at Book Time with Elvis is doing it as well, and a few others, which is a reading event all about Sherlock Holmes. And because I've got this other stuff to read, I don't think I'll have a chance to really take part in that. But there is a book I do want to read, which is this. This is The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes by Vincent Starrett, which is kind of a famous book about Sherlock Holmes that I have never read. But I found this cool paperback copy a while ago. It was a while ago. And I've been wanting to read it ever since. So this would be a good month, February. If I could squeeze this in, that would be excellent. You know, so I could take part in a tiny way with Holmes is Where the Heart Is. That'd be cool. But then there's this book, The Anubis Gates, which I've been promising to get to forever. And this was originally going to be like the next book I read after the Chronicles of Amber, but you know, things just went to hell. And I'm hoping to at least start this in February. I'm hoping to at least start it. We'll see. I could have a great reading month in February. You never know. It could happen. It's highly unlikely considering the way things have been going. But maybe I'll be able to get to this book. This is like the book I really want to get to. The Anubis Gates. So maybe by the end of February. We'll see. If I do manage to read all of that stuff, I'm also going to be starting the Hap and Leonard series, which I've read before, but I want to revisit because I really remember enjoying this series quite a bit by Joe R. Lansdale. This is the first Hap and Leonard novel, Savage Season. So if I don't get to this in February, by the tail end of February, I'll probably get to it in March. But that's probably everything. Am I forgetting anything at all that I have to do? Probably not, but maybe. Also, of course, I'm still reading Thor, every day I read Thor. In a few minutes, I'll be reading Thor. And so I'm reading the first run of Thor, which ran from the early 1960s until the mid-90s. And I'm in the mid-70s now. I'm reading the mid-70s Thor. So I'm reading this every single day of my life because I want to be done by October 5th, which is when I started. So there's that. But one thing I was doing for a while was I was reading Superman every day. But then I stopped doing that. And then I was reading Superman and Batman every day. But then I stopped doing that because stuff happened. I went on a trip and went and saw my good friend Steve Donoghue and didn't read any Superman while I was there. Which is, you know, I could have. He's got a ton of Superman over at his house. But I stopped doing that. But I miss Superman, so I'm going to start reading Superman again. And I'm going to have Superman Sundays, where I read Superman, because I've got to continue with Superman, because I love Superman. And I was not finished with this Golden Age Superman Omnibus Volume 2. So more Superman content is coming to the channel. Aren't you thrilled? They're thrilled. Look at them. Look how excited they are out there in the BookTube world. Is that everything? I mean, of course, there's tons of other stuff I want to read, but a lot of that is going to have to wait till March. Like, I've got to get back to Edgar Rice Burroughs. I got to get back to Stephen King. I've got all these pulp books I want to read. So many books, so little time. Story of my life. Okay, guys. Speaking of little time, I have to go because I have to do a bunch of stuff before I go to work. What time is it? It's 4:39. I'm running late. Okay, guys. I will catch you next time.